Hello, this is the tutorial to show you how to make a simple face mask. So what you'll need is your sewing machine and some thread, or if you're hand sewing, a hand sewing needle and some thread, two contrasting fabrics, one for your outer mask, one for your lining, scissors, two pieces of elastic, 25 centimetres each, pins, a safety pin. If you want to make yourself a pattern, you'll need some A4 paper, a pencil, ruler, and then you can draw yourself two patterns, one for your outer mask, which is 26 centimetres by 19 centimetres, one for your lining, which is 20 centimetres by 19 centimetres. So first of all, cut yourself your two pieces of fabric, your outer fabric and your lining fabric, and then what we're going to do, along this top edge, we'll sew them together like so. Along this top edge we need to find the centre point. So take your fabric, fold it in half, and either make a little snip with your scissors or a pin in at that centre point. We need to do that with both of our pieces of fabric. So again, fold them in half, fold in half, and either snip, just a tiny snip, about 1/4 centimetre, or pop a pin in at that centre point where your fold is. Now what we're going to do, we're going to sew them with the right sides together. So lay your fabric out with your outer mask facing upwards, take your lining and put your right sides together. So you've got the wrong side of your lining facing you, and then position those two centre points together, pop a pin in and then pin together along the raw, making sure your raw edges are lined up, and then again at the bottom, if you're using a notch, you can line your notches up, a little snip, pop your pin in, and if you put your pins at right angles to your raw edges, it makes them easy to pull out when you're sewing. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to join them together using the sewing machine. If you're hand sewing, you just hand sew all the way along here and along there. So we're going to take a 1 centimetre seam allowance. So lining your raw edge up with the seam allowance guide on your sewing machine, needle in, machine on, a couple of stitches forward and then a couple of stitches backwards, reversing just to secure your stitch line, stop it from coming undone. And then we're going to stitch all the way along the edge, taking your pins out as you go, and then when you get to the end, reverse stitch again just to secure your stitch line. Take your fabric out, cut your threads, at the other end as well. And then again on the other side. So lining up with your seam allowance markings on your sewing machine. Reverse stitch to secure. And reverse stitch to secure the other end of your stitch line. Trim your threads. And then we're going to turn it the right way out. So you'll need your pressing equipment as well. You need your ironing board and your iron. And then we're going to just press this nice and flat. Pressed all the way along, pressing your seam allowance at the overlapped edges, the longer edges, sorry, the outer edges. And then what we're going to do, we're going to fold that one down like that to create a triangle there. Pin it in place. So you're folding it up to the raw edge of the lining of your mask. And again on this side, fold it over, pin it in place, and then again at the bottom, pin it in place. And now you can give that a press just to hold it in place as you go. And then the next thing we're going to do, we're going to fold this raw edge over so that it sits just along that raw edge there. And again, you can pin it in place. So what we're doing now is we're creating the channels down the side of the face mask, which we will put the elastic through. So pin it in place. And again, on the other side, you're taking that raw edge, putting it up to the raw edge of the lining fabric, pinning it in place, and then again you can press that in, press that, final thing to do is to fold it over along the edge where the raw edges are. So you're just creating a channel like that. Pin it in place, and then again, so you're folding right over that lining fabric. Then we're going to stitch along this edge here to hold out to create our channel. So taking your sewing machine, needle in, a couple of stitches forward and then reverse just to secure your stitch line, and then we're just stitching along the edge of that folded over, and there we go, all the way to the bottom, and then reverse again just to secure it. Cutting your threads, so it should look like that. And then again on the other side, reverse stitch to secure your stitch line. Cutting your threads. So now we've got our stitch line either side. Next thing to do is to put our elastic in. So taking your safety pin, making sure you've got one that's the right size to fit down that channel. You don't want one that's too big. Attach your safety pin to the end of your elastic and then push the elastic through that channel. So you're feeling for the safety pin as you go. Be careful not to pull it through the other end. Take your safety pin off, take your elastic and tie it together in a knot. You can stitch it on your sewing machine if you'd like, but it's just as quick to knot it. And then same on the other side, safety pin through the elastic, thread it through the channel, be careful not to pull it through, and then making sure your elastic's not, keep your elastic nice and flat, make sure it's not twisted in the channel, tie it in a knot. And then to stop that knot from irritating behind your ears, you can pull it through so that the knot's actually inside the channel and not behind your ears. So, oops. If you find it tricky to get it in, just push it in with a pin or... And there we go. Same on the other side. Pull that through there. Oops. And there we go. Face mask, which will sit with the elastic that sits over your ears.